Snacks Between Two Wings. I'm your host, Emily Norman, and today we have Drew Holcomb with us, who is not only a great singer, songwriter, and musician, but he's also a pilot and has found some really unique ways to tie these two passions together. Drew, thank you so much for agreeing to come on our show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to talk with you.
Oh, yeah. I know you don't get to talk about aviation too much, it sounds like. So I think this will be fun for the both of us to of course, nerd out about all things pilot life.
Yeah, I do a lot of podcasts, and they're almost all about music. So when I saw that you guys invited me to be on here, I was like, absolutely, let's do it.
Perfect. Yeah. I mean, I'll never pass up the opportunity to talk to any other pilot, that's for sure. But we do like to start off by just touching on our backgrounds that we've got behind us. I've just got Lake Travis behind me. It's one of my favorite places in Texas, one of my favorite views. Obviously, it's always just a little bit better from the air, but nothing too special. Unlike you, it seems like we've got some historic things there.
Yeah. So I found a couple of photos from around the house of some family members who were pilots in their youthful military days. So on my right is my grandfather-in-law, so my wife's grandfather, who was I think he was a B-17 pilot in World War II. And then on my other side, that's my great-grandfather, who was a World War One pilot, Army Air Corps, and then was a hobbyist for quite a while after that. And yes, this is he actually had a sort of a tragic. He crashed, and that's how he passed away when my grandmother was 5, and I was the first pilot sort of in his lineage. So 1, 2, 3 generations later. And so my grandmother gave me his wings and his logbook and this great photograph. And sort of always, I had this photograph when I was little, before I got my license, et cetera. And I always kind of looked up to him, even though I obviously never knew him. And even if he'd lived a full life, I probably would not have known him. But yeah, so there's just a couple sort of aviation mementos from around my house.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us, we do have someone in our family who's a pilot. It kind of helps fuel the inspiration and makes it seem achievable. But your story's a little bit different there. I'm sure there was some hesitation from other family members when you're like, "Hey guys, I want to go fly." What was that like, and how special was it once you did get to that point?
Yeah, it was. So I had it on both sides. Couldn't find a picture of my own grandfather, who again, great grandfather, wife's grandfather here behind me. My dad's dad was a pilot in the Navy, and couldn't find a picture of him. But yeah, so there was like this. There's a lot of aviation in the family on my dad's side, and then my mom's side again kind of had given it up after, or sort of after my great grandfather passed away. But I think they were actually more excited than they were hesitant. A lot of people went after me actually after I got it. Another cousin got it, and then some nephews have learned to fly. So we're passing it around now.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like I guess your entire family is recatching the aviation bug. That's so great. So obviously you've had interest and passion of aviation. I mean, it's hard for any of us to not look up at the sky every time we see a plane pass by. But you got your ticket pretty recently. What was the process there?
Yeah, so I got my private a long time ago when I was. Let's see, I'm 40, so I got my private when I was 19. Got it in college. I made a deal with my dad that if I got a scholarship to college, he would pay for me to learn how to fly. And so my freshman year, I jumped right into aviation, got my license by sort of the late winter, early spring in Knoxville, Tennessee. I went to UT Knoxville and flew a lot for, I got up to like maybe 180 hours within the first 2 years. And then kind of ran out of money and time, and then didn't fly for 16, 17 years. And got back into it during COVID. I was sort of a COVID, one of the many people who got either back into aviation or into aviation for the first time during COVID. But I've been wanting to do it for years. And in my line of work in music, sometimes I get to fly in other people's planes to go to different shows. And every time I'd get up in a plane, I'd go, golly, I really just want to get back and do this again. And for touring, COVID really grounded us. Like we were used to doing, 100 and something days a year on the road, traveling, making music. And so when COVID happened, I was sitting at home and didn't, have as much work to do. And found a flight club that made it sort of make sense for me financially. And my wife also was pretty, like a lot of people, was very excited about the Cirrus system, the safety with the caps and everything.
With touring, you can fly yourself places. Is that something that you're looking to do or have done?
Yeah, I've done it a couple times. A couple weeks ago, I had a corporate engagement where I was playing music at a private event in Memphis, and instead of leaving at 9 in the morning and driving 3 hours and then sound checking all that stuff and then having to spend the night and come home the next day, I left Nashville at 3 o'clock. I sound checked at 4:45 and played the show and was back in the air by 9:30, and I was in my own bed by 11:15, 11:45. So that's definitely a big part of my vision, is to use it whenever it's safe to go back and forth to shows. And my kids, I always joke, I tell them that airplanes are time machines, because they can buy back time. And in my training, I used a lot of my cross country sort of requirements to, I'd have my instructor go with me to a show. We'd fly there, play my show, and then fly home. So I did that 3 or 4 times. And yeah, I'm already sort of looking at my calendar and circling where I can use this new, newfound opportunity to sort of buy myself some more time, but also just really love to fly. I just got back from taking my kids for the first time. So my wife and kids, to the beach for the weekend and home, and it was kind of fun because there was like some storms around here and there. We were, nothing crazy, but kind of going through, and the kids could see lightning 30, 40, 50 miles off. And it was just like, just a fun, unique hobby, and the hobby that actually has like a usefulness. So
definitely. And like a few things to touch on there. First of all, seeing thunderstorms from the air from a safe distance, of course, is my favorite thing, because just the whole perception of it, it's insane. And to see where it just can abruptly start and stop. We get to experience something that's super unique. And then also it's interesting because a lot of people I talk to, it seems like being a pilot, having a family, it can be hard because your schedule is so hectic. And so it's great that this has actually allowed you to spend more time with them, get home and tuck your kids in for bed, or, just be more a parent and not have to be gone for multiple days. So I think that's super unique.
Yeah. And there's other pilots in town. There's obviously a lot of artists that have airplanes, but there's few that actually fly themselves. Another one here in town is Dirk Bentley. He's been flying himself to and from shows for many years. And it's a fun sort of unique way to get around. And obviously I want to continue to build time and eventually maybe get into something bigger. But for now, I'm just really loving the opportunity, and using it for fun and for work has really been cool. So,
these two passions, music and aviation, I know a lot of pilots that also, play some instrument, are really into just music in general. I fiddle on the piano and think I'm good sometimes. What are some of the connections here?
I think I find a lot of peace up in the air. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I find interesting is people talk about how dangerous it is to fly. People who don't know, especially single engine, they're like, "Oh, why that's Every time I post about it on social media, I have like 5 or 6 fans that drop in my direct messages, and they're like, "Don't do that. It's good. Get back on the ground." They're so uptight about it, and certainly some people have their reasons, and I respect that. But once you're up there, especially if you're flying, on a flight plan, an instrument flight plan, you're just in your lane, and it's got your autopilot on, and sound of the buzz of the engine with your headphones on. It's just a real peaceful time. I actually find myself sort of doing a little bit of songwriting when I'm up there. Nothing that keeps me from paying attention to what I'm doing, but just keep a little like legal pad, and words come to you, and thoughts and notes. And I think there's just a peacefulness about it. There's also just like the challenge of learning an instrument is very similar to the challenge of learning how to fly. Because there's like this great mixture of learning the actual like information that makes music work, but then also like learning feel and having your own sort of spin on it. I think flying's like that. You obviously want to have the knowledge and the data and all the information to fly, but then you actually have to get up there and do it. And that's a different thing. Feel and execution is different than sort of knowledge. And the two of those things together is what makes a good pilot. I think it's very similar in music. But I think the main thing that music and aviation share is travel. I mean, every musician I know that, is successful at it, they spend a lot of time traveling. That's sort of part of the job. I mean, we all have, whether you're in a tour bus or flying commercial or, certainly there are plenty of artists who are big enough to fly private. I'm not one of them. Although now I can fly myself. So
yeah, I think that's better.
Yeah, it's better. So that's a big part of it too. You meet a lot of interesting people. And that's the other thing I love about aviation is that when you meet people who are pilots, there's immediately something to talk about. Like, oh, what did you learn in? Where did you learn how to fly? Have you ever flown into this airport? What's your favorite airplane? How many hours do you have? Do you have your multi? Have you ever done any tail dragger? There's just like, how'd you get into aviation? What made you want to be a pilot? How old were you? You saw Top Gun and fell in love with aviation.
Yeah, all of those things.
Like that was definitely me. I mean, I'm a child of I was born in 1982. So like Top Gun came out and it was like, I've got to be a pilot, And now it's like, there's going to be a whole new generation with Top Gun 2 coming out of people who want to become pilots. But I think there's just like there's a mystique because they both require a lot of dedication and time to enjoy them. You can't just like hop in a plane and go fly if you've never done it before. You can't just like pick up a guitar and play a song. Both of them have to dedicate quite a bit of time and energy over time to get proficient and thoughtful at them.
Yeah. And so on that note of, there's obviously an adrenaline rush with both things, aviation and performing. Which one were you more nervous for, your first solo or your first show?
Oh man, that's great. I think the better question would be, what was I more nervous for? My instrument checkout ride and the oral, honestly, the oral part I was so nervous for versus like, your first time playing on like a late night TV show. Cause like when you play Jimmy Kimmel or something, you have one shot because it's live, and you're like, better not mess it up.
Yeah, it's literally live.
And then you get on your check ride. And I remember when I landed afterwards, and I feel like I did pretty good. I was kind of looking for a little bit of like something. And my DP had like total poker face, and I guess they have to wait until the plane is shut down before they can say anything. And so it's just this like, 5-minute taxi ride and shut down where I'm like, oh man, I failed, totally failed, So anyways, when he finally told me I, passed, I was like, oh my God,
Well, so we'll have to somehow let Jimmy Kimmel know that this DPE is more intimidating than him.
For sure. Not a question.
Oh, that's great. So you've actually done some pretty cool flying outside of just personal stuff. I know it's taken you to Africa to do a few things there. What's some stuff that you've done over there?
Yeah, I meet fans all over the place. I mean, I'm not like a big famous artist, but we do have fans all over the place, and we meet them at random places, airports and restaurants and sporting events, and obviously at our shows or restaurants or whatever. But I was on a charity trip with this organization called Bloodwater Mission. They do well projects all over Kenya, and so we were flying to this little area called Marsabit, which is way north Kenya in the desert, right near South Sudan. And we're in we drove there first, like on this like 8-hour van ride, like brutal, like middle of nowhere, potholed roads. But we were there for 2 days, and then we were going to fly out of there to West Kenya. And we get to the airport, and it's a desert strip, and the pilot had to circle 3 times really low to get all the goats off, so that all the kids are getting all the goats off the field. So he finally lands, and he's sort of going through, and he has got a manifest of the passengers, and there's like 5 of us, and he's going through, okay, and he's got our weights. He's like, okay, you're sitting here, and he's like, okay, Drew Holcomb, and he goes, yeah. He's South African, and I won't do his accent to not embarrass myself. But he says, Drew Holcomb. He's like, wow, that's crazy. He's like, my favorite songwriter is a guy named Drew Holcomb. What a small world. And I said, yeah, that's probably me. he goes, "You're the songwriter, Drew Holcomb?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh my gosh!" So like, what are the chances? Like this bush pilot in the middle of the desert is doesn't know that he's about to pick me up, and I'm his favorite musician. So
And then you're also
that's
a pilot, and you can bond
that
about
also as a pilot. Yeah.
that.
So I ended up getting to fly right seat with him and talk about music and flying, and it was a pretty cool. He's got a very unique story. He's been flying mainly flying caravans all over Africa for 15 years. He's got like 8,000 hours in a caravan, which is a lot, you know.
Yeah,
So
yeah, definitely. No, that's great. So you just got your IFR ticket, doing a lot of flying, music, it's back, shows are back. I know you're actually even going to be in Houston like later this year. What's kind of on your plate and on your agenda moving forward with both of these passions?
yeah, I think I'm trying to for flying. My main sort of goal right now is to build a bunch of time, and so looking at my calendar and trying to find as much opportunity to fly long cross countries. I just talked to some friends today. We're going to fly all the way to Traverse City, Michigan, which is like a 4-hour flight in the SR-20,
Mhm.
and play 2 rounds of golf and then fly home. So now what's crazy is it's a 4-hour flight, but it's also it's a lot faster than commercial. It'd be like a 9-hour trip commercial. So
Yeah,
just
when
got
you factor in the drive to the airport, parking,
yeah, it's
TS,
2-hour
all that
drive, all that
stuff.
stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So stuff like that is a lot of fun, and then obviously sometimes when you tour, it doesn't make any sense to fly. Like if I'm doing 5 shows in a row and we're on the bus and we're in a different city every day,
Mhm.
it doesn't really make a lot of sense to try to do that in an airplane. But for on the music side, we're working on a new album. We have a big tour this fall. It's the first tour we've done since COVID with my band. I sort of toured 2 different ways. One is with my wife. And we did a tour already this year, like an acoustic tour, and then a tour with my band. We haven't done that since 2019, and so yeah, we're going to be making a lot of new music. I'm writing every week. Spent a week in the studio in North Carolina in April, and we're going to spend a week in the studio in Seattle in August, and just working on a lot of new music. And in the meantime, hoping to catch as many opportunities to fly. This club I'm in also owns this really cool 2-seat light sport that is not fast enough to really go anywhere, but it's a great plane to fly around the region, build time, hone your skills. It's got like, great instrument approach sort of training stuff on it as well. So, just building time while doing my job and continuing to make space for that. I love flying with my kids. They really like it, especially my daughter. She's 9 and she has a million questions about
Awesome.
everything,
That's great.
everything on the PFD and MFD. So, yeah, I'm just having fun with it. I don't have, some major goals. I do have a friend who's a CFI who sort of specializes in tailwheel. He's got a Piper Cub on a grass strip in Middle Tennessee that I want to learn that just to sort of connect, especially kind of connect back to my, the family story. So, just enjoying it mainly. And I think the camaraderie that I've found with pilots has been really fun. And there's now like various texts where I have some buddies that own planes and they'll say, "I'm going here. Do you want to come with me?" Or I'll say, "I'm going here. Do you want to ride?" So it's just fun.
Yeah, it's definitely it's hard not to have fun when you're around a bunch of pilots and you have that passion as well.
Yeah.
We have like work chat groups where it's like, hey, I'm going here for lunch, or hey, I'm going to fly over here and just check it out. Like, who wants to come? And it could be people who've never met or talked to each other, and they just want to join and share a love of aviation with other people.
Yeah, no doubt.
All good things. Well, Drew, thanks so much for coming on Between Two Wings. It's been really fun to talk to you about the music side of things and then also flying. And it's great that you get to actually fly to shows and just have fun with all of it. So
Thank you. I appreciate the time. It was fun chatting with you.
of course. Well, everyone, thanks so much for tuning into this episode Between Two Wings. We'll see you next time.
there's also just like the challenge of learning an instrument is very similar to the challenge of learning how to fly, because there's like this great mixture of learning the actual information that makes music work, but then also like learning feel and having your sort of your own sort of spin on it. I think flying's like that. You obviously want to have the knowledge and the data and all the information to fly, but then you actually have to get up there and do it.